Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for March 14th. March 14th is the 73rd day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, 74th in leap years, with 292 days remaining to the end of the year. I'd like to take a moment to mention that links to my sources are included in the show notes. Ask you to go ahead and click that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Remember that you can share this video with others with the link in your email, messaging, or social media. And I also have a This Day in History playlist, which I will link right up there in the iCards for you. And with that, let's start with the birthday of German painter and engraver Ludwig Emil Grimm, born March 14, 1790. His brothers were the well-known folklorists Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, authors of Grimm's fairy tales. Emmel, being the visual artist of the group, did artwork for his brother's book. Eli Whitney was granted a patent for the cotton gin on March 14, 1794. Now, I always wondered, why did they call it a cotton gin? Turns out that was a nickname for cotton engine. It's a machine that quickly and easily separates cotton fibers from the seeds and is quite a bit quicker and more efficient than doing so by hand. This is the birthday of English author Isabella Beaton, born March 14, 1836. She started writing a book when she was 21 years old, and it's called Mrs. Beaton's Book of Household Management. This was an extensive guide to running a household in Victorian Britain. Mrs. Beaton was not quite 29 years old when she died in 1865, but her book remained in publication and continued to be a bestseller for decades after her passing. Isabella Beaton. This is the birthday of Albert Einstein, born March 14, 1879. My goodness, there's a lot to tell about Albert Einstein. More than enough about him to fill a whole episode all by itself, and you could let me know if you would like a special episode dedicated to Albert Einstein. He lived to the age of 76. On March 14, 1900, the Gold Standard Act was ratified. This placed the United States currency on the gold standard. The gold standard is a monetary system in which the standard economic unit of account is based on a fixed quantity of gold. In other words, the value of the dollar was tied to the value of gold. Under that system, dollars were legal tender and were redeemable in gold. This stood until 1933, when President Roosevelt, FDR, took us off the gold standard. This is the birthday of comedian, actor, director, and producer Billy Crystal, born March 14th, 1948. He's been in a lot of things, movies, stand-up comedy, and such as that, and it's really hard to pick just one favorite thing of his. But if you ever get the chance to watch his one-man show called 600 Sundays, do it. In this, he tells in sketches of his life with his father, which took place over the course of 600 Sundays. I think it was originally on HBO. I actually did get to see it in a theater in New York live. That was pretty cool. You'll laugh, you'll cry. It's great. 600 Sundays. Billy Crystal turns 73 in 2021. March 14, 1964, Jack Ruby was convicted of killing Lee Harvey Oswald and sentenced to death. Lee Harvey Oswald, as you might know, was the assumed assassin of President John F. Kennedy. Oswald had been arrested for the assassination of President Kennedy in Dallas, Texas in November of 1963, and Ruby shot him in the jailhouse. So his trial and conviction was actually concluded pretty quickly. A year and a half later, in October of 1966, the Texas Court of Appeals also thought that this trial was concluded a bit quickly and reversed the decision on the grounds of improper testimony and also the idea that there was no way Jack Ruby could have gotten a fair trial in Dallas at the time. Jack Ruby never made it to that second trial, though, because he died of a lung cancer complication in January of 1967. Interestingly, he died at Parkland Hospital, the very same facility where Oswald died and where Kennedy had been pronounced dead. On March 14, 1967, President Kennedy's body was moved to a permanent burial place at Arlington National Cemetery, really just a few feet away from its original interment site there at Arlington National Cemetery. In the early 2000s, a synthetic element in the boron group of elements was created. This element is extremely radioactive and has a very short half-life of about 10 seconds. Other than that, not much is known about it, as it has only been made in small amounts that decay within seconds. Interesting to know that there were various groups of scientists working on something like it independently in various parts of the world. And the honor of naming rights was given to Japan. And so it is that on March 14, 2017, a naming ceremony for the chemical element Nihonium took place in Tokyo, Japan, with then Crown Prince Naruhito in attendance. And that's all I have for you today. Hope you learned something you didn't know before. I know I sure did. Always do. As I mentioned before, links to my sources are included in the show notes. And again, I'll add a link to the Day in History playlist right up there in the corner for you. I also post these videos on my blog. There's a link to that in the show notes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Originated in St. Petersburg, Florida. It's not Florida. All right. Okay, we gotta make that go to sleep. We'll do that in a minute. I wrote that awkwardly. Now, how are we going to do that? All right, let's back that up just a little bit. The Volkswagen microbus, so many mistakes. I don't know how all that's going to go together, or if it's even going to make it to the video. We'll just see. That's not going to go. Probably cut all that out. That'll all be laying on the cutting room floor. So I'll just do that whole thing over. That might not make it into the video, we'll see. Changing it up.